My name is Zach. I'm your cult boyfriend, and today we're talking about season 6 of One Tree Hill. I cried in episode 5 when I saw Samantha, a new character played by Ashley Rickard, whatever. The girl from Awkward didn't even know she was on this show, but she plays like a troubled teen, and in episode 5 it shows her sleeping in what I first thought was Keith's auto shop, but I guess was actually the class. It was at school. It was like the shop classroom or something, or the garage at school. It could have actually been the auto shop, just redressed. Either way, it's incredibly powerful, considering it's actually an orphan of high school and teen drama. The power of it all. Samantha Walker, the orphan of One Tree Hill, the orphan of its philosophy. Yeah, I'm actually walking away from this for the first time in 6 seasons saying that Brooke had by far the most fascinating storyline. Brooke's arc actually offers the most fruit for thought. The most interesting concepts are actually worked through Brooke because Brooke takes in this orphan, this troubled, lost, like alt punk skater girl into her house and really grows from it. And what we covered in season 5, when the showrunner himself had a cameo in it to really lay down what the new philosophy of the show is. It's like the first 4 seasons of One Tree Hill helped its audience through coming of age, and coming of age is a deconstruction of youth, at least when viewed cinematically. The first 4 seasons were about helping you through that time, through your own teenage years, and I'm guessing the second half of this show, season 5 and up, seems to be about making sure that the next generation doesn't have to deal so intensely with love and fatherhood and failure and even victory, that the next generation is possibly a generation of clarity. And that's pretty beautiful. And I think that that's embodied in the physical metaphor of Sam. And to a less visible extent, Quentin Q, who dies in the beginning of this season, is shot. But I believe that Q and Sam are great metaphors, great analogs for what One Tree Hill sees as the future, the next generation of cool. And already these kids are a lot more sincere. These kids are a lot more sensitive. And these kids need belief and hope more than anyone else, more than anything else. Maybe that's what teenagers need more than anything else, is hope in the face of hopelessness, is to be taught about moments of clarity and to be taught that through grace. Because if there's one like motivating factor, if there's a dream of One Tree Hill for seasons 1 through 4, that dream is clarity, moments of clarity. If there's a dream so far for seasons 5 and on, it's grace, living with grace. Refinement of movements, a refinement of passions, a refinement of expression, and it's about taking responsibility. That's a large part of what season 6 is. Every character has to take responsibility. Season 5 was a lot about the lost causes that our characters can't help but fight for. And season 6 is about taking responsibility for what those lost causes represent. And Samantha Walker is an incredible character. I loved her. And finally, I actually see like an analog for myself within the show. I was definitely most like Sam in high school. You know, just a fucking bratty punk kid who got a sort of high from breaking petty laws or, insignificant, like social values or whatever. Like I was opposed to. I was just trying to have fun and be rebellious and reckless, and I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And I think that that sense of not belonging is best expressed and best represented by orphan qualities and orphan archetypes like Sam. I involve Q in this because it's also about having a role model or having dreams taken away, or living for the next generation. Q was a troubled kid as well, but he was able to turn around and come around. And I'm really grateful and happy that Nathan keeps having these conversations with with him, with his ghost, with his presence, with his memory. And Q is pushing Nathan harder and harder uh, because there's something about this next generation that everything that kids do, I guess, is an act of redemption. Maybe that's the most universal thing. Kids are always trying to be redeemed because kids always feel like they've done something wrong and that the world is out to punish them. And in a large way, that they're right about that. But people like Brooke and people like Nathan, those are characters, those are archetypes that can change lives, and you can change lives too. But I just think that Samantha just works best as the physical poetry of this concept that I'm talking about. Um, a lot of it does have to do with how spot on and perfect Sophia Bush was this season. She's great in every season, but here she's given something truly philosophical to convey, and Ashley Ricard as Sam is extraordinary. Uh, an incredibly emotive experience. Well, yeah, it is an emotive experience watching her, but I was trying to say it's an emotional performance with a lot of expression within it, and a terrible amount of pathos. Brooke is always saving people. That's her addiction. If Lucas was addicted to self-sacrifice, Brooke is addicted to saving people. Any lost cause that comes her way, but specifically people who really, really need her. And who needs Brooke Davis most? Who needs teen drama most? Who needs One Tree Hill most? I would say the hopeless young person, the hopeless young girl who doesn't feel like they belong anywhere in society, in this world, being taken in by a postmodern Molly Ringwald, being taken in by Brooke Davis. And Brooke Davis is able to, through her own iconography, because she's already such an important cultural marker in teen drama, she's able to use her own icon to affect the next one. One Tree Hill is trying to make sure that kids don't feel hopeless anymore and that nihilism doesn't win. They're trying to remind you that magic is real, that miracles happen. And Brooke Davis is trying to tell Sam that she's that she's beautiful and that she's unique and that she's necessary and that she's not unfixable. They made me cry, and that the best parts of One Tree Hill season 6 have to do with the philosophical conversations, the 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 melodramatic dialogue that is ongoing between Sam and Brooke. And I even like that we can involve Julian in this. Julian is a new character introduced this season, played by Austin Nichols, who I liked a lot. I wasn't really expecting to like this guy too much. He's not given the greatest entrance. You think he's there to fuck up Lucas and Peyton's happy ever after, but he really does grow on you. And that grin really is something else. It's a terribly charismatic character. In fact, I would call Sam and Julian so wildly charismatic. There are several scenes that only Sam and Julian have. And had this been any other season of any other show, and they're dedicating so much time to two brand new characters that I hadn't seen before this season, I found their scenes so gripping and captivating, which says a lot because the other characters they've built up 6 seasons of goodwill with me, and I was really, really excited just to see Julian and Sam have a scene. And that's when it dawned on me that these are great new characters and that I love them both. And I do find it kind of adorable. Julian isn't given too many opportunities to shine in this role, but when he shines most is when he almost assumes a fatherly one with Sam. It's like the new postmodern family. And Sam is a good continuation, a good apprentice. One Tree Hill wants the next generation to be better than the one that came before, to feel more loved. And we should make that a reality every chance that we get. And Sam was just such a good idea for Brooke. Such a great idea. Save me, Brooke Davis. Also, Evan Peters, I guess he's been around forever. He was a pretty good love interest for Sam. I liked Evan Peters. Uh, he's probably never given a bad performance. a pretty nuanced kind of actor. He did very well. I loved seeing him and Sam be totally awkward and adorable with each other. It's like Dan says, losing forces change, we wait. Brooke lost Lucas and Julian lost Peyton only to win each other and win that passion through change with patience and act it out through grace. This is the last season with Chad and Hillary. Chad Michael Murray and Hillary Burton left the show after the sixth season. This is Lucas and Peyton's final bow, last dance together. I think that they're possibly the greatest on-screen couple I've ever seen. Their chemistry only grew. It only got more and more electric until I'm still like vibrating from the shocks, the visceral shocks, the impassioned ones from that you feel from 6 seasons, over 100 episodes of love that really feels so real and inspired and full of fire and heat and electricity. I love Lucas and Peyton. They are my favorite on-screen couple. I feel something so energetic and electric and truthful when I see those two share a scene together. And this season has a lot of wonderful moments with them. They get married, they have a child together, Sawyer Scott. Heartbreaking, and they're also adorable, which is heartbreaking in a much happier sort of way. They have this adorable Brady Bunch type episode, the stereotypical sitcom episode with all of those contrived like ideas of silly things that couples do. They put that piece of tape down the middle of the house and they stay on their own side or whatever. But there's so many adorable things that happen in that episode. There's an adorable fight about the Cure and how Lucas doesn't like the Cure, and she's like, "Yeah, if the Cure could squint, it'd be you." Michael Murray even directed an episode, and he wrote one. I was more surprised by the writing credit that he got on the Casablanca noir-esque episode, which is fun. It's a bit weird, but hey, after 6 seasons, you're allowed to be fucking weird. To go for it. I'm surprised Chad wrote it, and it's pretty good. Even in that fantasy, Peyton's car is always breaking down, giving Lucas a literal opportunity to look inside of her and see what's wrong and fix it, because no one's unfixable. Not really. And while he didn't direct that episode, he did direct A Hand to Take Hold of the Scene. And Ockerville River has entered the zeitgeist. That's one of my favorite bands, Ockerville River. The stage names is all over this season. I think I'd love to talk about talk to Chad about Ockerville River. The stage names, the record by them, pairs perfectly with season 6, especially since that's a record that is really devoted to investigating our lives, cinematic, musical, the spectacle. Who's the real you? And if a real you exists, does it only exist when it's captured and like objectified for others to engage with? There's a lot there. And if that sounds a bit Kevin Williamson-esque, a bit Dawson's Creek like, well, that's fair, because this is definitely the first season I've come across so far that could be called Kevin Williamson-esque. They want to make a film out of Lucas's novel An Unkindness of Ravens, and who gets cast as the director? Who's going to direct the film? James Van Der Beek, Dawson Leary, and Lucas Scott. They meet. Of course, he's not playing Dawson Leary. He's playing some nightmare version of Dawson Leary, but it's wonderful seeing James Van Der Beek and Chad Michael Murray occupy the same space with their unique kind of energy. But Lucas Scott is not Dawson Leary, and One Tree Hill isn't Dawson's Creek. Our Life is Not a Movie, or maybe, where Kevin Williamson was hyperfixated on the idea that our lives have become cinematic and that possibly second chances could be given through the spectacle, through art, through film, through media, that you can live twice, thrice, a countless number of times, and in them you can live forever. And that sincerity does matter, but new sincerity is cinematic at first. At the very least, it's cinematic. Whereas One Tree Hill rejects that concept. It rejects the society of the spectacle as a problem, as a necessary problem. It doesn't identify the spectacle in any sense of the word, because One Tree Hill is, of course, saying that you are the master of your destiny. You control your own fate. That life is not a movie. Not even maybe. Life is a dream come true, and it might sound a lot more naive than Dawson's Creek, That's because it is. Naive or not, it's also a lot more courageous than Dawson's Creek ever was. Because One Tree Hill has the guts to make a stand and say, what you do matters. You matter. Not a representation of you, not your double, not your cinematic alternative, not who you see in your dreams as yourself, not your idealized form. In One Tree Hill, what matters is when you're able to make those dreams a reality. What matters is what you actually do. What matters is everything, and you are a part of that. You are a huge part of that. Dawson's Creek was fascinated with the relationship between the spectator and the event, the relationship between how films influence us and music can determine us, how circumstance can rule us if we allow it to. One Tree Hill rejects all of those concepts. With One Tree Hill, you determine music, you determine film, you determine circumstance. In the first season, it completely obliterated social stratification and then came to view social hierarchies of high school as not only facile but unnecessary and entirely invented, not innate. One Tree Hill is largely a rejection of the philosophy of Dawson's Creek, and it is pretty magnified in the sixth season. Dawson's Creek is a much better show than One Tree Hill, because One Tree Hill wants to believe in miracles, and not in an intellectual way. It wants to believe in actual miracles, and it wants you to believe in them too. Dawson's Creek you might call hyper-articulate and verbose, whereas One Tree Hill tries to be much more sensitive and immediate, urgent in its messaging. But One Tree Hill never loses that intensity. That intense love that you felt as a teenager can definitely be translated into adult romance. Certainly. Because you determine romance. Romance doesn't determine you. You define love. Love doesn't define you. That's One Tree Hill's perspective. Now you get into a lot of gray areas with this kind of philosophy that One Tree Hill has, and that One Tree Hill proselytizes, and One Tree Hill celebrates. And the idea that this show really, really wants you to have babies. It wants you to have babies more than anything else. It is hung up on this allowing this new generation to define itself as opposed to letting like social class and media and things out of their control define them. They want everyone to have complete autonomy because the tragedy of youth is largely a tragedy of control, and a lack of it is truly the crux of that tragedy. And One Tree Hill wants you to have a child. One Tree Hill wants everyone to have a shot, to the point that it gets completely ethically murky when Peyton is told that if you go through with this pregnancy, you will probably die, and your baby's life is not guaranteed either. And Lucas doesn't want her to have it because he's like, I need you in my life, and we don't even know if the baby will be okay if you go through with this. But she decides to go through with it because they'll beat the odds, because miracles exist, right? And it's a miracle birth, and both are alive and happy, and I'm very happy that they're alive and happy at the end of the season, but that's also telling a huge audience that you can beat the odds. Yet that's the exception, not the expectation. Please, if you're watching my channel, if you're told that your pregnancy could result in death, please consider terminating it. Because I think that's a wildly irresponsible thing for the show to support and celebrate and idealize, and fantasize about. I really hope that this show didn't have any dire consequences on its huge audience of hypersensitive young girls. I hope it didn't. Don't do that. Don't listen to Peyton. It's just, from an analytical level, it works. From an analytical level, if she was forced to abort the child, it would betray its philosophy. So I'm telling you, from a quality standpoint, from an analytical one, from a philosophical one, that completely helps and supports the philosophy of the show's sixth season. In actual life, which I'm telling you, One Tree Hill wants to affect the real world, 90% of the time, it has very good intentions and does an incredibly stellar job at it. This is that 10% that this show could be providing very lethal advice to its audience. This is the first and only time I'm going to tell you not to listen to Peyton. But it works philosophically, right? Of course, Lucas would marry a girl who's even more deathly devoted to self-sacrifice than he ever was. She's willing to sacrifice herself just so that an unborn child can have a chance. And in saying that sentence, I would have to sound like the devil to oppose it. And philosophically, in One Tree Hill's universe, possibly. If we're having an actual discussion, you and I would really, really implore that you consider not doing that and trying again. But after all, it's your choice. And One Tree Hill, they can prove that you're the master of your destiny. With a little help from miracles, then you can be happy and drive off into the sunset on a comet. But I do think it's a little bit irresponsible of the show to support such a dangerous decision. No matter how romantic, well-intentioned, or sensitive it was and is, but it really does help the narrative. It absolutely does. Because Lucas Scott, he's very good at sacrificing himself, but he's incapable of allowing others to do it. If Lucas would have lost Peyton, if Lucas would have lost Peyton and the baby, that would have destroyed him. But One Tree Hill is telling you that if you take a chance, you'll be rewarded. The message is beautiful, but the messaging is frightful. Nathan, his conceptual framework is that of basketball. The idea that his individuality and his identity is not only transcended, but I think it's constantly being defined and redefined and supported through athleticism, through playing basketball. He gets called up to the NBA this season after a lot of hard work, and everyone told him no, it's yet another miracle. He even plays slam ball with like a broken back. Once again, guys, if you were in a wheelchair, try not to get tackled by anybody just a year later. This show can be wildly irresponsible at times, but once again, he succeeds. Miracles. Miracles. You have to believe in miracles, right? You have to. I feel like I've been the subject of several miracles, you know. Great things can happen to people. Your life can be changed in a glance, in a kiss, in a gesture. It happens. It definitely does. And maybe I'm just so nihilistic in my age that the naivety of One Tree Hill season 6 is something I would normally call intolerable. But I understand what the showrunner is trying to say and trying to do. In the long run, I think it's admirable, and I really appreciate the philosophy of the show's sixth season. I think that the fifth season was better, making the sixth season the worst season that I've seen so far, which, once again, isn't to say that it's a bad season at all. It's a very enjoyable one. But it's where the philosophy starts to get, I think, more damaging than helpful. I really, really do. Because if I were to follow this treatment, if I were to follow these teachings, my life may be more meaningful, but I'm afraid I would encounter an event that's so horrific that everything would seem positively meaningless because of it. I cried though when Peyton called Lucas and was like, maybe I can't call you my fiance anymore. Maybe I need to call you my baby daddy. I'm going to have your baby, Lucas Scott. It was so sad. And happy. Like it was really happy. I was really happy for them. There are a lot of cool little meta moments when they're casting the movie and Brooke is like, Probably gonna cast one of those CW dweebs or something. And she's like, well, at least those snots over at the CW were hot. And of course, this season was on the CW. Started on WB. The WB became same as CW. So we're here. And I also like that Stephen Coletti comes back as Chase. He's far less annoying to me than he was in season 4, so that's a positive. But they're like talking about Nick Lachey, I think, and they're like, yeah, he's that dork from Dancing with the Stars. They're like, no, 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 he's not. Fine, he's from Laguna Beach then. And then Steven walks by going, no, that was some other tool. I like it when people can be self-aware about it. Jamie is low key annoying. I didn't think he was too annoying in season 5, but holy shit, he fucking bugs me. He really bugs me. Nothing against the actor, Jackson Brundage or something. Nothing against the young child star. I'm actually surprised at how much work they had this little kid do. He nails every line. I just think it's annoying as fuck, and I hate how he's used. And also, it is such an advertisement for like, you should have kids. You should really have the kids. They'll be geniuses and they'll be able to look into your soul and tell you what you need to know. Fuck off for a second on that. You're making this kid so annoying. Great performance from the kid. Like, he's in it so much. They didn't let this kid rest much. He had a lot of responsibilities on this show and he pulled through. I just think that the character is kind of annoying right now. And there are car crashes here, another car accident. I've seen people complain about the tropes of car crashes on One Tree Hill, and I don't know. I live in Florida, so maybe we're all just like terrible drivers, but like I've been in a few car accidents. Like I've been in a few car crashes in my life, and I don't think I know anyone who hasn't. Like sure, it's ridiculous and it feels absurd, but when I actually step back and think about it, I'm like um, yeah, no, everyone I know has been in a car crash, and I've been in like 4. So, I mean, I think it's a lot more accurate than people give it credit for. I don't know. Maybe people are bad drivers over there. Yeah, maybe you should never drive a car and never get married in Tree Hill. It's not doesn't usually lead to good things. Not not very positive outcomes involved in those activities. We got more Mouth and Millie. I still hate Mouth with all of my heart. Mouth is still entirely uninteresting and not worth analyzing. I was really surprised by a moment between them, though, that the writers actually recognized this concept. Millie gets mad at Mouth and ends up giving her virginity away, sleeping with Owen, the himbo bartender, which must be Mouth the incel's worst nightmare come true. So I mean, it's fun seeing him get punished, but when they're having an argument about it, he's very upset with her for doing that. And she says, my virginity was mine, Marvin. It was never yours. And I'm so proud of the show for recognizing that because it was going to be something I was planning to criticize. But, she does a great job, great actor. And Mouth isn't a bad actor. It's just a terrible character and an archetype that I don't want to justify with an analysis because I think it's a stupid, stupid character entirely that only has stupid arcs and really limits whoever Mouth is having to share that arc with. So that's it. Goodbye, Mouth. Nice talking about you. Okay. As LOL, the heart gag. All right. So there are a couple things I knew about the show before going into it, and the heart gag was one of them, where when the dog eats the heart in front of Dan and Lucas in a wild series of comic misfortune. Um, it was like Cracked or something. It was some article or video even about like the most convoluted things ever in shows. And that was on it. It makes the list a lot. It's an infamous scene because it even starts as a Sims game because like it's always trying to keep itself rooted into the simulation that Jamie is playing. He's playing The Sims and he's creating his own tree hill in it. So, but you don't know that when the episode starts. It starts off with this weird computer animation, and then, yeah, it's a comedy of errors until a dog eats a heart that could save Dan's life. I didn't know it was Dan. that this happened to, and I didn't know any part of the context. I don't even think the writers or whoever put the video or the article or the podcast together. But like I said, this event has made it on a lot of lists of like wildly stupid things that happen in TV shows. So I knew this was a thing, but I didn't know any context. I didn't know the characters involved. I just knew that a dog eats an organ off of the floor that could have saved someone. It's all I knew. And I think it was really funny. But also, those articles don't include that One Tree Hill knew it was being insane, that One Tree Hill knew it was being psychotic, because they talk about it. They talk about how psychotic that idea was. Lucas is like, a dog ate his heart. It was the weirdest shit I've ever seen, and it was hilarious. Yeah, it was. But that doesn't betray the show's philosophy at all, because as I've said, post 9/11 universe for young adults was definitely an unpredictable one that felt random and unmerciful. But maybe karmic. Maybe it did feel karmically justified. So I guess I just had to mention it there and analyze it. So there you go. I analyzed the heart gag, what you guys have been waiting for. It's just an expression of random karma. The show and the writers and the actors, they had a bit of fun with how to fully express and demonstrate that concept. So good on you guys. So season 6, yes, it's the season that I like least. And the hardest thing about it is definitely having to say goodbye to Chad Michael Murray and Hilary Burton. My favorite characters are Lucas and Peyton. Goodbye. I love you guys to death. Chad, from what I've been able to read, he left over contractual disagreements. He wanted more money or something like that. There's that video of him taking pictures of fans, um, asking them or saying, "Hey, you guys should blog and get really mad about this." Sorry, I'm a bit late to the party, Chad. I would have fought for you like there was no tomorrow. My battle cry would have been heard at every studio in LA until you were back on One Tree Hill. So Chad had his own reasons, and Peyton had hers. Um, from what I've heard and what I've been able to read, Hillary's wasn't really contractual disagreements. Her contract ended and she didn't want to renew her contract. She wanted to find herself. She wanted to do something else, do something different. I think she felt kind of smothered, trapped in One Tree Hill, which is really surprising because by the end of her run on the show, she reminds me a lot of Michelle Williams when she was doing Jen on Dawson's Creek, in that those two actors grew so much that by the end of Michelle Williams's run on Dawson's Creek, just like at the end of Hilary Burton's on I'm sorry, Hilary Burton's on One Tree Hill, they're both doing these wild line readings and taking these really, really interesting choices and decisions of their performance. And Hilary Burton was absolutely incredible in this show and really grew as an actor. And she left for personal reasons. She left to, I think, find herself. But I'm sure a huge reason of why she left was also that it was a toxic working environment. The showrunner, I think, clearly loves Peyton the most. I think that the showrunner loves Hilary Burton. Had a terribly abusive way of showing it. But he would insert himself as Max, the record store owner. He would come in to give her advice specifically, and I think I understand the showrunner really well after heavily analyzing his decisions during his structural ones, his compositional decisions, his philosophical ones throughout this show, and I think I understand him very well. He might not have left strictly because of the toxic working environment that the showrunner was largely responsible for, but I'm sure that if the environment was different, that if the environment was healthy, if it was welcoming, if it was a truly warm environment, then it might have been difficult for her to leave. It might have been more difficult for her to make that decision. But you lost her, showrunner. You lost your muse. And whatever huge plans you had for Peyton and Lucas, those are gone too. And I could tell that those two characters are your anchor, but specifically Peyton. Peyton is where your heart is, writing her. I know that because I feel like I know you. But you fucked this up. You completely fucked this up. If you at least could provide a warm and positive working environment, maybe she would have thought twice about leaving. but you didn't, and you brought this on yourself. The show will go on for 3 more seasons, but you're having to regroup and redesign and recompose. And I'm not really sure if you can do that, but we'll see when I'm back in a week to talk about season 7. But her leaving, I'm blaming on you. I'm blaming it on you, showrunner. This is your fault. The story you wanted to tell, the woman you wanted to express the most powerful statements of the show through, she left. And you definitely should be held accountable for it in an extremely large way. It's your fault that your show isn't the masterpiece that you intended. Thank God we have the first 4 seasons, a beginning, a middle, and an end. A masterful piece of teen drama, a masterpiece beyond compare. I am so devoted and in love with the first 4 seasons of this show. And I feel like you were trying to start another another like structure, right? Another beginning, middle, and end. But Peyton, clearly your favorite character, she left and she didn't think twice about it because you were so awful. And that's your fault. But goodbye, Peyton. Goodbye, Lucas. You guys meant the world to me. And when I imagine you two, I imagine you're happy together. And I want that kind of happiness too. Thank you for watching my video about Season 6 of One Tree Hill. I will be back in 1 week to talk about Season 7.